Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for our kind of collaborative AI webinar here with Cybersecurity and Corey Rankin. The topic this morning or this afternoon is Mythos versus Reality, Emerging Threats Intersecting AI and Cybersecurity. And we know that this is just a hot topic in more ways than one. So we wanted to jump in and give some good information here and some opportunity to discuss and collaborate and just share what's going on. We have Corey Rankin here with us today. He is the K-12 Cybersecurity Program Lead. And Corey, I think I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Stacy. All right, can you see my screen here?
Sure can, looks great.
All right, well, I appreciate everybody being here. We have more people joining, and I was asked to do this webinar a couple different ways. We had someone who wanted to know, what is the big deal? Is this something I need to pay attention to? Is this more hype? How does it apply to me in K-12, right? So linked here, this short link, go.ncdpi.gov, Mythos versus Reality, is the Google Drive folder where I put some of these resources, including this slideshow. And if you feel brave, that QR code will take you to that folder. Just a little bit about me. I operate the K-12 cybersecurity program for NC K-12. So everything that we do is no cost for all of our public school units. And this is one of those things we do, which is consulting and presenting. So let's start off with a little bit about what we're going to talk about and something I want to point out. So this slideshow was generated with AI, and something that you, of course, have to pay attention to when you are generating things with AI is where is it getting the information from, and what is the output? If I had made this presentation right before this presentation, I might not have noticed that my name here, my last name is not Matthews, but for some reason the AI decided that it was. So as you are generating AI output, be sure that what you're generating is accurate and appropriate, because AI is making a prediction on the next letters and words and images and videos that you have put in as input. So if you were to put in something ambiguous or part of a name and you're asking for a last name, it's going to give you the most predictive last name, not the accurate necessarily last name. I did throw a few notes on my slides because most of this was AI generated, and I'm looking to show you some things to pay attention to and not just what I've done here with slides. So these little orange notes, those are entirely me and not AI generated. Most of this is AI generated because what I'm looking here is for questions, hopefully collaboration, and not just me reading from the slides. So again, why this exists, I was asked to do it. I thought it would be a good topic since government and K-12 are often some of the more slowly moving industries. And we know with AI, it is one of the fastest moving technologies. So how do we deal with that? What do we need to pay attention to? What's new here? What is not new? What is old? And what can we do? And what should we keep an eye on? You can see in the bottom right, I used primarily Claude connected to the AI slideshow generation tool Gamma. Okay, so in the chat, guess as quickly as you can where Waldo is in this image. Don't actually try to find it. I just want your guess as fast as you can in the chat. I think everybody's actually trying to find it. I'm just looking. Okay, all right. Happy Harbor, beside the red car, a boat. tint. He's not there. In the middle, fountain. Okay. Middle left, behind Corey, beach. Okay, so obviously this is an AI generated image. Let me show you what a couple models said. This is not a Where's Waldo image, of course. This is just some kind of creepy cartoons that were generated by ChatGPT. But look what happens when I bring up ChatGPT 5.5. I used it on thinking, and you can see here 5.5. I gave it the image that it generated, and I said, can you help me find Waldo? He should be somewhere near the top left. I have a friend who found him who gave me a hint. And thinking for just a couple seconds, 1 second actually, ChatGPT confidently says it's in the top left corner. If I were to point some mythological cybersecurity generative AI agent against a database or a web server or other application and say, find all the vulnerabilities, show me the top 10. What is it going to find you? Will it be critical against there are no vulnerabilities when your prompt has said that there are and that it needs to find 10 of them? So if you ask for something that is not there, even if you don't realize it, you may end up with hallucination as a result. So you want to make sure your prompts are headed in the direction of your output. And that can be tricky when you don't know whether your question in your prompt does exist or not. I'll show you here just as a comparison, and this isn't to say one is better than the other. Every model and company has different training data and systems around it, but same prompt, same image. Here is Gemini 3.1 fast. And actually, they are not really clearly stating anymore which model they're using, which is interesting, but that's a whole different topic. You can see here that Gemini is saying that Waldo isn't in the image. I continued on to say, it's definitely here. My friend showed me from across the room. And it goes on to say that, no, it's not really here. So another thing here is to consider running your prompts against multiple AIs or against another adversarial AI, or tweaking the prompts, and then ultimately doing human verification at the end. Because if not, you might end up with the wrong last name or finding Waldo where it does not exist. Okay, next up, again, why does this talk exist? Well, we know that in the last couple months here, Anthropic released and then unreleased their model Mythos preview, and they said it's too dangerous. The cybersecurity risks are beyond what we can reasonably release. Well, right within that timeline, I have no confirmation of this. I just want to point out that the company Anthropic was in I suppose, a debate with the federal government on using those models in confidential and cybersecurity situations. So in my history in K-12 government and previously in sales, I try to think of incentives when I was trying to determine why people would answer a certain way or not, especially publicly, and to something that is widely circulated among the news, right? And that leads me to my answer and why I think some of this may be coming out as hype, but there are real things to consider here. But I just want to say, what exactly is said is not always as what is happening, if that makes any sense. The second thing here is that people are using AI. This specific Mythos preview that was released to a number of companies in the quote unquote defensive space are using it. Something interesting here from Mozilla is that they were normally reaching about 25 security fixes per month in 2025 and throughout 2025. And they now shipped 423 security fixes. Now, at the bottom there, you can see they used the Mythos preview to find 271 of them. And reading between the lines, what I want you to pay attention to is that they released 423. They're claiming Mythos found 271. The difference on that is much different than their previous baseline of 25 per month. So what I want to say about that is Mythos is not described as a cybersecurity model. It is a general purpose model. And the indication here is that AI as a whole is getting better at code. And code includes insecure and secure code, as well as security patches and otherwise, which in my opinion is leading to a lot of what we're seeing around the hype and the capabilities of all models, not just specifically the Mythos preview model. In the third column here, I wanted to point out that obviously attackers are using it as well. We're seeing phishing emails that are a little harder to spot, a little more targeted, a little more relentless, along with from CrowdStrike's 2026 Global Threat Report, they're seeing, according to them, 89% higher year-over-year AI attacks, AI-based attacks, AI-assisted attacks, and that makes this harder for us, right? Because with greater capability, less typos, more targeted, more autonomous, those attacks are only going to get stronger and harder to detect and remediate. Also of note is that, as with all technology, but with AI in particular right now, is what we're calling shadow AI, where your users, your staff, your students are incorporating AI into their work, their personal lives, managed and unmanaged devices, depending on how you manage those devices. And that goes everywhere from the browser. Google Chrome is incorporating AI, as with many others. And the question is how are you aware of and managing those and auditing those? And that is a decision that we'll all have to make. We'll just have to make it much quicker than previous technologies because of how fast this is going. The last little bullet there, the Cloud Security Alliance, SANS, and OWASP did do this emergency briefing to say that the exploit timelines are shrinking. So in years past, you might have months. If you look at your mean time to resolution goals amongst different companies, you might see days, you might see weeks, you might see months. In some cases, these are now much quicker. Instead of potentially initial access broker finding something and then selling it, that takes some time. It is possible now to do that all in one in the same AI model instead of the human delay, I would say. So what is new here? Because I'm talking about a mix of what's capable now versus what's faster, et cetera. Quotes from Palo Alto's usage of not just Mythos, but about Mythos in their blog post is that they are seeing what they would consider 1 year's worth of penetration testing done in less than 3 weeks. So, it's sort of interesting to think about because we have humans that will just say they're working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. We know that's not exactly how things go, but let's just say for sake of the argument here. Well, instead, the AI can be running 24/7, 365. It doesn't need to sleep, doesn't need to eat. It can just continue, right? So consider that when you're looking at the numbers there. It is a dramatic number to go from 1 year to 3 weeks, but just that you can have as many of these running as you want, 24/7, 365, does change some of the timeline there, right? A lot of these things are benchmarks or simulated environments or other test scenarios. So the models in the last few releases have also somewhat, I suppose, understood that they are being tested. So we need to keep that in mind as we look at these test scenarios versus real world scenarios, is that we don't know, one, if the training data has polluted the benchmark, and or are these actually happening in real life. So to Anthropic's point here of the Mythos model, they kept it for the defenders. We don't know what attackers will be able to actually do with these models, but we do know what defenders are able to do with these models now. I already spoke to this, but all of the models now are getting better at spelling, voice cloning, doing things from an automated standpoint. Those things were not possible a year ago so much. I'll show you some examples of that from previous press from Anthropic. And we'll also show you some areas where instead of it just being a marketing front page, I'll show you some of the red team stuff that Anthropic is doing, which may be less marketing, right? I add here in the orange note that of particular interest for me to keep an eye on are the agentic attacks. And what do I mean by that? Well, I hope now that everybody is used to being able to chat to a model, chat.com, Claude.com. So you ask it a question, it thinks a bit, and then it responds, right? Well, the definition of agent is highly debated, but I'll just say for the purposes of this conversation, I would consider an agent to be something that can perform a goal, like it can work towards a goal and continue to work towards that goal until that goal is achieved. Now, achieved is another word to debate here, but the idea here is that humans usually are searching for low-hanging fruit or a high-value target. There's a human there, and they're spending time, whether it be creating custom exploits or they are, doing reconnaissance or open source intelligence to find the targets. They're creating those scripts. They're spending time, and they may not have unlimited resources. They need to, again, eat, sleep, create these exploits, etc. Whereas the AI agents, those don't have to do that. They can spend all of the time and in parallel, and then they can alert the human which ones that they should consider working on. On the right here, I'll just mention some quotes here from the system card, which is how these models are kind of graded by the teams at these labs with the benchmarks. So at least from the benchmark side of things, they are getting better. Now, the real world is what I'm most interested in, so I don't put too much into the benchmarks, but we'll move on from there. I just wanted to quote some of those benchmarks. When you say a benchmark has become saturated, that's when the models now are achieving the high end of that benchmark. So new benchmarks have to be created. And again, what exactly does that mean? There's some debate there, but the models are outpacing our benchmarks that we're able to create. So what's not new? I kind of mentioned this a bit already, but you see here 3 rows of exploits that Mythos claimed to have found. And a lot of these bugs that were found were old. Well, if you're looking at a 27-year-old bug, you can assume, in my opinion, and also the Rival Security blog post here, that the model was trained with the code that bug is in. And what I mean by that is if in the training of the Mythos preview and all the other models, they would have seen this bug. So contrast that to saying that a bug was found in code that the or a web server or an application that the model had never seen before. I think that's an important distinction. While it is extremely important that these bugs are being found, I mean, any bug found that's a security risk is something that could be solved, but it's interesting. We know if any of you are trying to code with agentic models or LLMs, you know that they don't always use the most up-to-date versions on things. So that's due to the training data. You may have to provide the model updated documentation or code to convince it or to get it to use that, right? So I just wanted to point that out, that these are groundbreaking bugs that Mythos has alleged to find, but also consider that it may have been in the training data, which doesn't diminish it, but does change perhaps what it found, right? A good quote here from Tony at CIS: 0 days aren't new. And what I mean by 0 day is a security vulnerability that no one has found yet. So it's been sitting there that someone could have found at any time. 0 days aren't new, the scale might be. And a good call out here to say that existing cybersecurity programs and controls are the recommendation still here. It's just you don't have the time, you don't have the ability to move as slowly as before, because these things are being taken advantage of much more quickly. In a particular case, it seems that AI models may be capable enough now to take a patch note or a patch and reverse engineer it into an attack, which, just as I say that is a new technique, that is a new technique for AI models, perhaps. It is not a new technique for attackers. Human attackers have been doing that since, the land before time. But, now you could script an AI model to search the changelog and alert you when one of them is exploitable, right? So let's talk about some of the issues that we have to deal with here. These are from Clever, a company in the K-12 space. They have this report they do every year called Cybersecurity, as well as incorporating some of the data from FBI's IC3 annual report. We're all worried about it, right? We're expecting incidents. We're getting a lot more phishing. We're seeing a lot more attacks on student accounts. And then we have these accounts being sold on the dark web. So those are things we're already dealing with. But, these things are going to get faster, right? On the other side of things, we're having our trouble dealing with, AI, right? AI tools. We have these same issues with normal tools, right? Technology is entering into every department, every facet of our organization. And AI tool vetting, inventorying, and usage is straining our resources. You look at the middle quote there with 2,700 distinct ed tech tools on average annually in districts. Think about that for a second. We may have one, we may have five, we may have 10 people on our technology team. And how possible is it for us to vet all of those tools? And so there's only a few ways I can think of to get through that list. And that would be, starting at the top with the most used, or, coming up with some sort of team or collaborative way to do that. Perhaps an automated way to get through the majority to focus on the high risk ones. We can't just go one by one and vet these tools. And those 2,739 tools that we are using in our K-12s, they're all getting AI now. Everyone is incorporating AI tooling, agents, chats, and all of those tools, those 2,700, we're going to have to look at them again. That's why annual review is important, because the capabilities of those tools change as updates are happening, right? and we are at the current peak of AI being put into everything. So, it will go up from here as people find new use cases. In that cybersecurity report, that's a national report, 53% reported insufficient cyber spending. In North Carolina here, anecdotally, I've seen that we do not have dedicated cybersecurity staff across K-12. There are the lucky few that do, but I know that you all have many different jobs, many different things holding your attention, and many other issues on spending, not just in cyber, right? Okay, so let's get into some actions. And before I do that, I meant that I wanted to look at some other things. So this first one here, I talk about patching perimeters in browsers. I'm going to switch over to the report on this. Mozilla, that makes Firefox, again, shipped 423 security fixes in April, that being 15 times their normal baseline. And they claim that they are validating all of these with a human, right? So think about just the review workload that are now in consideration, right? The defenders that are doing the patches and the coding, they're able to create faster. They're able to create features faster, but you have to keep up with the creation with the defense as well. And it shows that Mozilla appears to be able to be handling that. Let me switch over to Mozilla here. I'm going to do a little bit of a quick history tour here. This is Daniel, who is the creator of curl. Curl being the extremely widely used Linux tool for web fetches. And I'm just going to briefly walk through a timeline here. This is January 26th of 2026, so early this year. He said the end of the bug bounty program at curl. So bug bounty programs are where if you find a vulnerability, you can report that to the company, and depending on the confirmation and severity, they will pay you money. So you can see here, they have had 87 of those vulnerabilities and paid out over $100,000 as rewards for that. Well, right here, they decided to end this program because of the amount of AI-generated bug reports they were getting. It was stressing their organization to which they could not respond to the bug reports. They could not tell whether they were able to validate them or not. So they left this platform because of the amount of reports they were getting, and they had no, according to them, capability to deal with that. So again, this was January 31st, 2026. They basically opted out of AI vulnerability reporting. Okay, now we go just a few months later to April 22nd, 2026. Now they're getting high quality AI bug reports. So what happened between January and April? Well, anecdotally, the sentiment amongst the coding community, in my opinion, is that late 2025, things turned a corner on AI coding. And so I'm saying AI coding because the cybersecurity capabilities that are coming out of the models now are not cybersecurity specific models. They are general purpose models. And the big companies are quite interested in autonomous coding because that will help them, in their opinion, get stronger at coding, which is what they mainly do, is code. So then that late 2025, like December to January, people started to discover and improve upon these models, and more models have since come out with greater capabilities. So now they are, in March, back on this vulnerability platform because the capabilities of the models improved. You then have the last one here, which was just a couple days ago, where curl got into the Mythos program and found a curl vulnerability. Now, we shared this one out here, but the main takeaway here is that 5 findings came out of the Mythos model. They ended up with one that they determined to be a confirmed, that they did not consider to be a not particularly dangerous bug, but you would miss the point, in my opinion, if you did not see that they are getting lots of improvements out of AI, but perhaps the Mythos level was the hype there. So this is the entire AI model industry getting better. And because curl had already started to incorporate higher quality AI models and tooling and workflows, maybe that's why Mythos didn't find anything. It's hard to say, so we're going to have to keep an eye on this one. But I just wanted to walk through a real company and what their journey had been. Next up, I want to go back to June of 2025. This is Anthropic's Red Team blog, where they are searching for cybersecurity and other vulnerabilities. And I want to go back to June. This is with Carnegie Mellon. And you can see here on their benchmark environment, they have some of these older models here, where this yellow color here on their benchmark, they had no achievement on their cybersecurity benchmark. And then you have this orange here where Sonnet 3.5 on a couple or 3 benchmarks partially succeeded once. And you see no complete successes. Now, on the same models and a couple additional, they added what's called a harness specific to cybersecurity, and then were able to succeed and partially succeed. The reason I bring this up is twofold. One, the date and the model, and two, what we're calling the harness here is all that comes after the model has been out a little while and people discover capabilities and build normal tooling around AI models. And then they're able to achieve more than the model could without. And that includes things like that you've heard of, system prompts or scripts or automation, not all just AI that we're talking about here, but other capability. Again, this is none of the AI of AI. This is other things around the AI that cause it to be much more capable at cybersecurity tests. In particular, one of the benchmarks they did was they recreated the Equifax data breach and then had the model attempt to recreate it without having knowledge of it, which I thought was interesting. Here is the anecdote from Mozilla on Firefox. And again, you see sort of the same sentiment. Suddenly the bugs are very good. They talk about all the bugs here and how they are incorporating them. And here's their graph, which is somewhat shocking on the amount of bug fixes they are getting. You can see in the 20s here, and then starting to rise up in the first quarter, and then peaking here. Now, it will be interesting to keep an eye on this as the days and months continue, right? All right. Back to giving an AI a goal. And I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here, but we will drop the link and it's in the presentation. But this company, Truffle Security, is a code security company. And they created a benchmark where they pretended, they basically copied some websites and pretended that AI was able to reach them and gave it a goal. Find this blog post on Meta's blog. So again, this is a fake environment. This is not the real Meta Facebook website. And they give it a task. So if I go back here again to where I asked it to find Waldo, they've asked it to just find a blog post. Well, it goes through and it's not able to find it. The website crashes, again, this fake website. Claude is looking around and finds a vulnerability. Well, it just decides then to hack the database because the user wants the blog post. It asks for the blog post. Well, it then receives the blog post with the SQL injection attack. Again, you didn't ask Claude to hack. You didn't intend it to hack, but it decided to solve the problem. You can see here the dots here are times it decided to exploit the website and times it did not, and then how long it took to do that. Here's Claude Opus 4.6, and here's Claude Sonnet 4.5. So you can see how the AI from just a few months ago decided to do this. We use the word decided here, I guess, versus Opus 4.6. That's not even to speak of Opus 4.7, Mythos Preview, or GPT 5.5 or 5.5 Cyber. They then went into some other models here, and you can see the times they decided to do that. And you can see that Sonnet 4.5 decided to do it. 15 did not. I think this one's quite interesting. You know, as the models get better at everything, and everything is, I don't mean everything, I just mean everything on, the more the safeguards and the harness and the prompting changes things. And if you believe what Anthropic was trying to do here, they did not want these capabilities to get into the hands of those that were really trying to do this, right? They wanted to make sure that defenders could get progress here first. For sake of time, I'm going to talk about this Anthropic Red Team blog. This is where you can see most of the breaking news around this with the actual capabilities. You can see here, according to them, how Sonnet 4.6 and Opus 4.6 were able to achieve certain exploitation on the Firefox browser. Here's Mythos Preview. This is not just finding the bug, but also taking advantage of it. So here you have, sorry, I just pressed the wrong button. This is perfect. All right, there we go. Easy to hit the wrong hotkey. I was trying to zoom in here so that you can see 4.4% getting the bug, 15 or 14.4 getting the bug, and then on Mythos Preview, 72% actually generated a successful exploit. Definitely take a look if you're interested in AI capabilities with cybersecurity, because the Anthropic Red Team has a lot of cool things here. You can see again that first one that I did was the first blog post back in June 2025. If you want to really deep dive, or your notebook LM is ready, these system cards are a great place to see these capabilities. They're also a good thing, like I say, to give to AI to ask what's in them, because they are quite expansive, 245 pages. I have here the Opus 4.7 and the Mythos Preview system cards. Next up, we have the Cloud Security Alliance talking about Mythos. And I'll show you here where I have put these system cards in to then use Notebook LM to say, well, what can I really look at here? Let me go back here because I'm doing terrible on time. Back to the patching. So those articles I went through are really about patching. You know, you could take the time in the past to really deeply determine what's going on and manually patch, but in my opinion, you need to move fully to automated patching. And you might think, okay, it's going to cause me some trouble, because of what if a patch breaks something? Consider rolling out patches per best practice to a smaller audience, and then expand over time so you can get that patch out. When you do that, when you do smaller groups, you can find those problems before they get to larger groups and potentially roll back or deal with those instead of the entire fleet of Chromebooks or Windows devices, right? Also consider maybe your email has MFA. I hope so. maybe your NCED Cloud July 1st has multi-factor for staff, but what about everywhere and everyone else? I get asked a lot about student multi-factor. That's an unanswered question. We do know that those accounts are being attacked, but consider upgrading multi-factor. And then, where else that multi-factor is not, because again, we might have it on the front door or email, but where else can you incorporate multi-factor? Next up, I already talked about vendors a bit, but not only determine where your software is and where AI is in that software, but where's your data? And consider going on your top most used applications instead of all of them, because if you're like the average on the report there, you have 2,700 tools to go through. So this is more of an organizational problem to solve. This is not a cybersecurity problem to solve, but your input and your subject matter expertise will help guide those tool decisions and those data decisions. Things to consider asking vendors is, what's the data? How's it used? Is it used to train models? Who has access, and how long is that data retained? Action 4 here with the phishing training, just pointing out misspellings just doesn't cut it anymore. Attackers are getting better. They're using AI to do it. And we have always also seen voice phishing attacks using deep faking and cloning. That's already happening. So if your staff are not aware of that capability, then what is the chances they're going to fall victim to that kind of attack? Okay, so I've given you all the bad stuff that's happening, and we have large companies that have access to these models, but what can you do? We have lots of things within our program that you can take advantage of. We are constantly keeping track of new and emerging threats as well as old threats. Give us your feedback. If there's something we're missing that we could help with, we want to do that. Also talk to your school districts nearby in other states. We have a cybersecurity community mailing list where you can share what's working, what's not working, or ask for help. I did not link any industry leaders or news or RSS feeds, but I just wanted to call them out because, go to those places, those people you trust, those minds that provide things for you to think about so that you can keep on top of things. I also references here, what's next for AI? What are the capabilities now and what are they gonna be? But try to cut through the hype, try to cut through the headlines, because you really don't know until things start getting proven. They actually start happening, right? Know what's on your network. You know your network, you know your organization. If something looks unusual, it probably is, right? It's worth investigating. If it's something normal and you're getting alerts for it, tweak those alerts. If you're getting alerts for something that is normal every hour on the hour, you're going to start to get numb to that. So if you can tune it down to where you're only getting more anomalous alerts, then maybe you will jump faster, work on those faster, right? On the good side of things, again, we have the defenders that have access to this. So upstream of when they get to us, these vendors are creating patches. And if you patch, if you can find an automated way to do that, then the defenders are getting access to these models first. You can reap the benefits of that. I'll talk briefly about how you might be able to use it now or in the future. Personally, and amongst others in the community, Notebook LM and custom GPTs have been used. You might consider putting public information into LLMs to, like, hey, look at these headers, look at the vendor terms of service privacy policy, help me think of some questions to ask. Maybe you're working a new procedure. Instead of starting it all from scratch, start with some templates, throw them into a tool, and then work with them after that. I've linked some other slides here, as well as the DPI AI guidelines. And I'll show you here again how I put in the system cards for the 2 AI models and said a few different prompts here, help me look at these things and understand them into Notebook LM. And you can see some comparisons that are a little easier to understand perhaps, and give you areas where you want to dig into the source material to determine whether it's worth your time or not, right? I did that here too with a ton of different reports just to show some different outputs. This was a potential slideshow that I was looking at for brainstorming purposes. Consider using that tool. Things to keep an eye on. Again, agents and what are capable of now and then tomorrow, those things are something to keep an eye on. Also, the AI tooling that is in your district already. Interesting little anecdote here about the FCC E-rate cybersecurity pilot. $3.7 billion requested against, there was 200 million for grabs. I think that shows a different problem that we need to think about. And AI being here isn't changing much here, right? These things we always needed, we just need them more quickly now. And back to how we're in this together. You have friends, you have partners, you have other K-12s, this state, other states, nationally. The cybersecurity defender advantage is working together. We're a community, and trying to do it alone with no money and no people is going to be difficult. My last main slide here is, okay, well, what can you do with this information? How is this going to help me? What do I need to worry about with Mythos? And these 5 questions on the left here have nothing to do with AI, because while AI is exciting and has new capabilities and concerns, the problems are not new, in my opinion. What are we protecting? Are basic cybersecurity practices and security fundamentals happening? Where are those things not happening? That's where the attack will happen. In number 3 spot here, can we see these problems early enough? Logging, alerting, having someone keep an eye out on things, knowing what your network is normally like. Step 4, who's in charge of what? Who's doing what? Speaking from experience, can be very difficult to respond to an incident if you, 1, don't even know if it's an incident or not, and 2, who's in charge? Who's keeping documents? Who knows what's normal? Who can speak to the press? Who can get us new laptops? These things are difficult to determine when an incident's happening. If you can answer any of these questions before that, then you can be more prepared and have that answer ready so that you can work on restoration instead of trying to find the right contact information. The last one here is back to my community answer. Are we learning from these mistakes and problems and attacks and defenses? Are we sharing? Are we collaborating? Are we using our power as a community instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and spending our time there? I have all of the references here. There's lots of interesting things to consider. I think I mentioned here our cybersecurity program plan in the state that walks you through things to think about, things to work on through the entire year. Again, this is back to basics, using cybersecurity controls and frameworks to bite off what you can chew instead of trying to eat the whole elephant at once. And I will now go to questions. I know that was a lot.
So while people are thinking of their questions, and either feel free to unmute, raise your hand, I can call on you, or Corey can call on you, or type in the chat, either whatever is comfortable for you. That was great information, Corey. I started to ask questions, but then a couple of minutes later you went and answered them. So excellent. Excellent information. I'll post some links in the chat as well. We really value your time with us today and appreciate you, just everything that this community does behind the scenes to keep everything up and running and secure, and to be thinking about these things in advance, because I think one of the slides that stood out to me the most, Corey, is that the problems haven't changed, but the clock has. Things are just faster. I dropped the feedback form into the chat. If you would take a minute to fill that out, we look at every single thing that you say and try to tailor our AI webinars and our cybersecurity webinars to meet the moment and what your needs are. So it'll also send you a certificate of participation if you need that.